Morning guys, Dave Canterbury at the Pathfinder School. What I want to talk to you about this morning is an alternate ignition source. We talk about the 10 C's of survivability and that everything in that 10 C's must be multifunctional. And I always say that everything has to be useful for at least three things. Well, your headlight, other than light and signaling, I mean, obviously you can hunt with it, but it's still hunting with the light. You're signaling with it, which means it flashes if it's got flash mode, and that's a good thing. And you can track with it if it's got green lenses and things like that. But all those things are surrounding light. So what else can we do with that headlamp? Well, we can start fire with that headlamp. And if we carry steel wool, quadruple aught steel wool in our kit, which I do most of the time for my tools, for my shotgun, for cleaning devices, things like that. And steel wool is a very good ignition source with a ferrocerium rod or with flint and steel. But you can also ignite or get ignition from steel wool with the batteries from your headlamp, your GPS, anything like that. You don't have to have a 9-volt battery. It really only takes about 3 volts. And a AA or AAA battery are both 1.5 volts. So if you plug 2 of those in series, and I'll show you how to do that, and set that up properly, you can gain ignition from that into a bundle of steel wool for marginal tinder. And that's what steel wool is really best for, is for marginal tinder sources where it might be damp, it might not be the optimum bird nest with the finest fibers in it, because once you start that steel wool burning, it's basically molten metal that's burning, and it burns very, very hot. So we're going to demonstrate for you how to do that. Then we're going to put it into a marginal bird nest and blow it to a flame. Stay with me, guys. Okay, so once we've taken our batteries, AA or AAA, and put them in series with a piece of duct tape, just like this, from our headlamp, GPS, whatever our electronic device is, we're then going to take a piece of this quadruple aught steel wool, and we're going to pull a very thin piece of it off, just like this. And that's going to be our conductor. And then we'll take a piece of steel wool, whatever size we want to use for our tinder bundle. And this is what we're going to use to start our fire with. The smaller piece is going to be our ignition source. So what we'll do is we'll lay that down, and we'll take this piece, and I'm just going to kind of twist it down into a fine fiber about the length of my 2 batteries, just a little bit longer. Give myself a little room to play with. The shorter the better. We're only talking about 3 volts of electricity. And then I'm going to fray the end of this on both the positive and negative end that's going to touch the battery. I'm going to fray it out real good to expose very, very fine fibers, just like this. Then I'll simply take this end and push it onto the negative terminal and touch this end. And that will give me the ember that I need to light my tinder bundle. you can see, guys, this is very, very marginal wet tinder. It's been raining for 2 days here in Ohio. This stuff's right off the ground, and I can still get flame out of it and ignition with that steel wool and that battery setup to give myself a chance at a sustainable fire, and that's what's important. Okay, guys, well, obviously, you know, that's not optimum conditions. You don't want to start with wet tinder. You obviously don't want to have to take your headlamp apart to use the batteries to start a fire with, but it's another tool that you can put in your toolbox to add to the source of ignition that you have in your 10-piece kit. And I think that's important to understand. The trick to that whole thing is the thinnest possible pieces of wire that you can get to cause that ignition to happen with low voltage. I appreciate you guys joining me for this video. I appreciate everything you do for me, for my school, for my family, everyone that I'm affiliated with. I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.